Hello, my name is Shauna Stefanchik, and this video is to walk you through the curriculum management training tool or tool for science. And again, I'm Shauna Stefanchik, the president and founder of Step Up Consulting. So if you're using this tool, you probably already know a little bit about me. So here's my history and a picture of my family on the slide. But the thing to realize is over the few decades I have been in education, the goal of this management tool is to make curriculum a more pleasant and less stressful process for you. You might be laughing that that's not possible, so hopefully I'll win you in the process, but that is the ultimate goal of what we are trying to do today. So we are going to be engaging in some pacing guide work aligned to your new priority standards. Hopefully with your district and how you're engaging in this video, you'll have work time and some feedback and then some time to debrief next steps. At this time, we'd like you just to spend a moment to do some introductions in your group and maybe even what you're hoping to get from today. Now let's just go over a big overarching idea of the work. We are wanting to look at priority standards so that we can develop pacing guides. Those items in pacing guides that are under the priority standard section will then become things that we assess around, which ultimately can impact our grade card, as we should be reporting grades on things that are a priority and that we're assessing. So all of this is related together. This slide is just to show you the connection among all of those things. So the question begins, why are we doing curriculum? And our company believes that there is an epidemic or a myth that's been going around in curriculum and what it truly is. So we want you to talk with someone next to you about this idea of what a guaranteed curriculum is. Robert Marzano says that a guaranteed and viable curriculum is the pivotal foundation of success in schools. And so at this point, we want you to get ready to pause the video and talk with someone around yourself. What does it mean to have a guaranteed curriculum? Hopefully you've been able to engage in some good discussion with those around you. I'd like to share you Marzano's definition. He says the guarantee is that every student is provided the opportunity to learn a core curriculum that provides them with the probability of success in schools. So every state determines what this guarantee is. And in Missouri, our guarantee is the Missouri Learning Standards. A way that we provide equity to students is making sure we give all of them the opportunity to learn the same core curriculum. So if we are not focused on the Missouri Learning Standards and intentionally teaching those, in effect, we are not giving every student the opportunity to do so. Now, where the myth comes in a lot of times that I've seen in education is when teachers are asked what their curriculum is, they tend to say the textbook or the resource that they're using. And resources and textbooks are intended to help us with our standards. But if you rely on those solely, there is a large chance that you are not covering all of the Missouri standards, and therefore you're not truly teaching a guaranteed and viable curriculum. You might remember, if you're around at the time that Common Core came and then it quickly went, that was the nation's opportunity to try to get all states on board with this idea of a guaranteed curriculum for every student in the United States. That did not go over well with many states, including Missouri, but the whole idea behind it was to try to create equity across the nation. So it's the same type of concepts, that standards are really at the heart of what we're trying to teach. And the viability, what is that? That is really to ensure that schools have the time available to actually teach those standards and that they have a realistic plan of how to go about it. And that's why we're looking at pacing guides. We need to know what our standards are. And now that Missouri has priorities, we need to specifically know what are those priority standards, and we need to know a realistic way of how we can teach those over time. So that's the why behind the work today, is that it's crucial that we have a plan of how we're going to attack those standards. And then another big reason, if you've well, I'll shift to this, was we know about priority standards. This came after the pandemic, in which the state came up with these priority standards because they said teachers are trying to teach too much. We really need to prioritize at every grade level. What are those big rocks that we would need to assess and make sure students master? We are still responsible for teaching all of the MLS, but the priority are those that we want to make sure we assess every time. Now, science, those of you who are watching this, you're thinking, well, great, all of our standards are priorities. And yes, that they are. They reasoned that since yours were aligned to NGSS and we're already fewer in number, that they adopted we're not able to prioritize those, that all of your standards are priorities. But you've also heard that with math and EOC testing, and this was already true for the case for you, that 100% of your assessment will be around those priority standards, and another grade levels 80 to 90%. So another big why that we have to have our curriculum aligned. So why the picture of a hamster on a wheel? This is how I feel most teachers typically feel during the curriculum process. And we are trying to stop that feeling, in that we know we have to have these pacing guides made, but we want to do it in a less painful and more expedited way. And we want you to be able to move away from recreating it and finally get to teaching. So let's go over the template you're going to be using today. It will look something similar to what you see on the right. Not only are we creating pacing guides, but we're doing what it says here, is we're wanting to try to eventually get some organized systems in place. So if you're a district who's using this template, it can also become a one-stop shop. If you are using a textbook, you can use that to help pace what your units at the top of this template should be called. You'll notice you read it in a column, that there's a unit, there is timing, here's assessments you could link in. It has what the student standards are called and the priority standard. If you do not have a textbook, that's fine. But if you are used to heavily using one, we want you to see the connection between the two. Let me go to this next slide that zooms it in a little bit more. You can see that the template has this yellow side that is labeled priority standards. Some priority standards you'll see run all the way across. That means you would be assessing this priority in every unit. Or there are some standards that are going to be standalone that are a big deal. Now, again, in science, you're not going to have that supporting standard. All of yours are going to live in priority. And the pink section should mirror that you see in the yellow, that it's the exact same standard, just written in ICANN language. So this is the idea that we're going to pace it. You'll notice the tabs at the bottom have different courses. We tried to put those all on one page, again, for just an organization system, so you can see them more and find them more quickly. And ultimately, our goal is going to be to link all of the resources you have, where the top of your template, you'll actually see the MLS, item specs, priority standards, all of those key documents. And this, while this is an example of social studies, I'll show you some more science in a moment. It's just to show you that while you have these contents, you're going to have specific things, quizzes, etc., that you can hyperlink into them to make this a management tool for you. Some of you might remember a time in education where you came in and did not know where your curriculum was, or maybe you didn't even have one if you were like me and you got to write it your first year. We're really trying to stop that practice in education and provide a system where teachers are always clear on what should be taught and what needs to happen. And this template and hyperlinking would allow us to have a sustainable system for veteran and new alike, where you don't have to sift through a million folders to find what you need. You can just come to one spot. How is that going to be expedited for you? So if you see on the screen at the end, in a moment, we'll pause this video and give you a chance to open up your tool, but you're going to have two tabs. A tab on the left that looks like this. It's going to have all the standards for the course you're working on. The priority are already in yellow, and it'll have a corresponding pink, and you can grab those and copy and paste them into a template. So again, you'll notice some, well, all of yours will be yellow and pink because they're all priority, and other grade levels, some are white. But we've done this, so it's just a matter of being able to grab the standard that you need, Control C or Command C, and then come over to your template and just paste it in. This is just what allows us to make it a more expedited process for you, that you'll read over your standards a million times, which will help concrete what those standards are for you, and then give you time to put those into your template. So at this time, I'd like you to go ahead and pause the video and pull up your curriculum management tool. Make sure you can access it, and then we'll continue. Okay, hopefully at this point you have your management tool up, and you've found for each one of your courses, you have a standard for your MLS and a template standard. Just keeping in mind, Google Sheets might be one of the most frustrating things about this, but you can adjust these things, and you'll notice up here this little link to videos, tips, and tricks. It will talk to you about wrapping text or copying and pasting or control finding. So if you need some of those formatting things, don't be afraid to watch this video, or you can play that as a group when you're done with this to kind of get some tips and tricks. But you'll notice for all of your science standards, they are all colored yellow because all of them are priority, and they all have the corresponding I can statement. So the biggest thing for you is to come to this template. And I was just practicing with history, so I'll erase these here. But if you already know which units you teach, like a molecules, you'll clearly see I'm not a science teacher as I do this. Landforms might be a unit. Water systems, whatever your units are, I would suggest that you start there. And again, if you have a textbook, it is okay to type some of the units of the content you like using there. But one of the biggest shifts that I need to remind you of with science is that you have three-dimensional standards. So in 6 through 8, and 9 through 12, you'll notice that your life science, earth, space, physical science are 6th through 8th grade standards. Sometimes what teachers tend to do is 6th grade teaches life science, 7th grade teaches earth science, and you split those out. Again, your engineering standards, which are on their own tab, need to be embedded within all those courses. But with the three-dimensional standards, they are wanting you to teach concepts from each one of those classes, life science, earth, space, physical science, all into your unit. Because when you look at three-dimensional standards, it's integrating all those types of content standards together. So it's very important that you understand three-dimensional science standards before pacing, because again, if you had the tendency to just pace and do all life science concepts, you would not be supporting your students in the depth that they would need to know the standards. So I'm going to hop out of here for a second and show you within your training presentation down here. There's actually a video that's called An Introduction to the Science Standards with a supporting PDF. If you are not familiar with in depth with three-dimensional standards, this is a video. It will come up as an Edpuzzle here. And I'm just going to play part of it.
Hello, and welcome to the first video in a series of videos that will take
So this is Krista McKinney, the former science content person from DESE, walking you through an understanding of three-dimensional instruction. As she mentioned, this is video one that we're going to be doing a series. But again, if you're not familiar with those standards, I suggest watching this video before doing your pacing, because this understanding of your pacing will vary, or your standards will very much impact your pacing, because what might happen as we go back to this template is you might pull a physical science standard as one of your priorities, and you're going to also pull a life science standard that goes with it as well. It won't be a clean physical science. It's going to be one standard from each of those. So again, science, if you need some more support and you have just been teaching within your specific content, at this time I would pause the video, and in your presentation slide, under this sample, there are videos to an introduction and a supporting PDF. I would suggest doing this activity prior to pacing. So I'm going to stop here and allow you time to discuss as a group if you need to watch this introduction video or if you're ready to move on with your pacing. If you are ready to move on with your pacing, I just want to show some examples again of how you would type your units into here, and you will have multiple tabs that you can go and grab and copy and paste into your template to do that. So this might also, if you're working with a 6 through 8 group, require some conversation about which standards you want to pull or to the depth of which you teach those. Another thing I want to encourage you is to look at these MOLEAT blocks, these items that are hyperlinked up here, but there are quite a few MOLEAT blocks, like for this waves unit that this teacher wanted to do, that tied right in it. These questions are written in a three-dimensional way, and these activities will help give you a clear idea of the types of proficiency we need students to be performing at. So after you get all of your concepts copied and pasted in here, you can go back to these MOLEAT blocks and find ones that will work well within your units. So again, you're going to be working on, after you get some of your, let's see if there was landforms, then I'd probably go to physical science. Let's see, model of atoms. I'm trying to go through, I don't have your standards memorized to find ones that would go with landforms, but we would come through here to read to see, are there any? I thought I saw model optimal design. So maybe that wouldn't be under physical science. This shows my lack of understanding with that. But let's look at this temperature, thermal energy. So if I go on my template here, and let's say I had typed in a unit that was energy, that's awful vague, but I could copy and paste that standard here. And then what I would need to make sure I do is to also grab the corresponding pink standard to match it. So I'm going to grab both of those, but I'm going to look within my unit and each one of my tabs and find which ones would go with that unit. I'm going to paste them into here, and that's going to guide then what my assessment should look like. And again, once this is filled out, as we can see from some other samples, this one, they've got cells, human body, plants, ecosystems, adaptations. This, let's see, here's an earth science one that you can see under plate tectonics. They've gone ahead and put some Mo blocks hyperlinked in there. So once your template is complete, you can go into some of these other resources and hyperlink them in. You can write your pacing here about how many weeks you think this unit will take. If you have an assessment or a quiz, you can put here, unit plans, anything that might be hidden in a folder that's hard for you to find. I would hyperlink right here so it will be easy to find in the future. At this time, I ask you to pause the video and practice copying and pasting things on your sheet and begin some work time. So at this point, you're going to be looking at your step one and just doing your priority standards. You'll be skipping the step two for science, but remember that you do have these video link shortcuts if you need some technical support as far as wrapping text, etc. But at this point, you need to just be writing your units at the top and deciding which standards could best fit within those. If you have time for a group review or some discussion, please take it. This time, we're going to ask that you just do work time and discover or discuss within your group how you can give each other feedback, whether that's through a facilitator in the room or other colleagues. And we thank you for your time and dedication to students and in this process. We hope that giving you a tool, some clear exemplars of what your curriculum can look like is more expedited and faster and hopefully less painful than what you've experienced in the past. This slide just shows a free instructional network that we provide that has updates if you would like to join that. But please reach out if you need feedback or support. We wish you the best on your curriculum development and thank you for all the hard work you do for students in Missouri.